Hello and welcome to Build Citywide Design Challenge. I'm your host and facilitator, Mo Foster, and this is session 3, defined by POV. Today's objectives are to provide an example of the clustering process as it pertains to the define stage and to define POV and understand how to craft one. On our agenda today is a warm-up, revisit steps to human-centered design, define cluster and provide examples, and then practice POV statements. We're going to practice drafting POV statements. Today's suggested warm-up, facilitators, you can find this on your facilitator resource page on the Citywide Challenge microsite. Today is about gathering insights for our test client, Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants. So as you can see, there are a few insights on here. I would encourage us all to add as many insights as we know. I think we've had years, many of us, to observe SpongeBob. Even if you're not a fan, there might just be a few demographic things or pieces of information that you know about SpongeBob, and throw those all here on the Jamboard. And I have this Jamboard prepared for you all. Just copy and feel free to add your own characters, any other character that you know that you and your students know pretty well and can quickly throw some insights on the board for. And we'll be coming back to this board later on in the session. Now, remember, we are embedding ourselves in this process of human-centered design, and our overarching design challenge question is, how might we build powerful, thriving communities where everyone enjoys safety, wellness, and economic freedom? And through the design process, we've been able to really get deeper into these themes of power, thriving communities, safety, wellness, and economic freedom. If you were involved in last week's session, or if you watched the video for last week's session, you may have seen a really great and wonderful interview with Annie Fawn, abundance educator, health and wellness educator and coach. Annie said something that really touched me. She said, health and wellness is not the same thing as the absence of illness. Instead, there are different dimensions in which we can think about our health and wellness. And I think that's very important, as there are plenty of people living and thriving with chronic illness, inflammation, pain, all kinds of things. But that shouldn't stop folks from still thriving for wellness in their lives. And it just reminded me that a lot of times when I'm thinking wellness, I'm really just thinking about like my body and my physical wellness and whether or not I'm healthy or not. And there are so many dimensions, Annie said, to wellness. And that's just something that I really want to explore deeper. What's something that you got from Annie's interview? If you didn't get a chance to check that out, just know that you can find that on the Citywide Challenge, Mo the Builder's Citywide Challenge YouTube page and YouTube channel. Your instructor can share that link with you. Remember, we're embedded in the process of human-centered design. I say embedded because I'm telling you, when you're in the design process, you're in it. Just like I'm in the Citywide Challenge right now. You see me here, I'm in the Citywide Challenge. We are in the process of human-centered design. All right. So far, you should have picked a client. You've probably watched a lot of videos, heard a lot of stories, and you should be writing down as many insights as possible. I'm hoping that you've gotten to 20 insights, and that's 20 insights per teammate, right? Per person. Some of you may have the same insights as whoever's in your team, whoever you're working with. And if you're working solo, you need at least 20 insights on your own. All right. Right now, we're at the define stage, and we're going to be here for the next couple sessions, right? For this session and the next session. And today, specifically, we're going to center on an action called clustering. We're going to be clustering our insights on our way to defining a problem. We'll talk more about it. Right now is a great time to pause, go to builduniversity.org and watch the Define intro video on builduniversity.org, our wonderful digital platform for the design challenge. Now, just as stated in the video, define is the stage. You will establish a clear idea of exactly which problem you will solve for the client. You'll do this by crafting a POV statement. Now, the POV statement comes with plenty of steps. It's got its own format. And the first step to doing so will have to do with clustering your insights. All right. So in the video, they show this template for crafting a POV statement, right? It starts with your person's name. That starts with the client's name, and then a descriptor of that client. And you want to go deep here, as deep as possible when you're adding descriptors. Then you want to say, this client needs a way to do something, right? A verb about a deeper problem in a way that allows them to do something else. And that's usually where the goal is. There's always a hidden goal with folks. Oftentimes, their problem is an obstacle in the way of them achieving a goal, right? And I think that's how it works for me. That's how it works in my life. That's how it works in my family's lives and people that I'm around all the time, is that oftentimes our problems are those obstacles in the way of us achieving something that we really want to achieve. So we start by clustering, okay? So yes, maybe that template is a little intimidating. Maybe you get it right away. Doesn't matter. We can't even get there until we start clustering, all right? And that means grouping details that are similar together, all right? So we're gonna be looking at your insights and looking for recurring themes in your insights. Where have you done this before? All kinds of brainstorming activities, particularly when we are reading a book and unpacking a book and really trying to understand a character's motivation, or really trying to assess what the book is really about. Oftentimes we start looking at themes and clustering themes and patterns. We're going to be doing the same thing here. All right. Now, when clustering insights from our clients, right? Insights are those notes, those gems, those tokens that we're collecting on our way to define, right? When clustering insights from our clients' interviews, start with these categories, all right? This is straight from builduniversity.org, okay? So we wanna look at client characteristics. That could be demographic information. That could be anything that the client says about themselves, like, I'm usually a really happy person, or I'm an introvert, or as an extrovert, I think this way or that way, right? So any of the client's defining characteristics, including I'm from here, or I'm the youngest, or I'm the oldest, or I'm about to graduate from high school, any of those things are defining characteristics. You also want to cluster any problems or needs they've identified, right? If they say, man, because I'm really having trouble sleeping, or man, you know, I really need to get organized. That's something that's really standing in the way of me doing X, Y, Z, right? And then you want to figure out what their goals are, right? What is this client really trying to achieve deep down? Could be anything from they really always wanted to be a dancer and they've never really looked into it, or it could be that they're trying to get into a really great school and they've got some things getting in the way, but they're working through. But again, don't take my word for it. Just ask Mo the Builder, who always seems to have some advice for us.
Hey there, Mo the Builder here, and I'm going to show you how I cluster my insights when I'm trying to draft a POV statement in the define stage. Now, when I'm collaborating with my team from a distance, I like to use a Jamboard. But when we're in person, I like to use sticky notes and poster boards and get up and walk around a little. For today's example, I'll be showing you what I do when I'm using a Jamboard. So here you see we have our client, Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants. We've been able to gather quite a few insights about Mr. SpongeBob, and we're going to color code them as we find and identify different groups. So we're going to put them into the 3 groups that were already suggested in the session instructions. Characteristics will go in blue, problems in orange, and goals in pink. Insights like demographic information on where he lives, or things about his personality like childlike and jovial, all of those things will be blue. Take a look up here and see what you would turn blue. Keep in mind you don't have to go in this order, but I'm going to go down the list onto orange and look for any problems that have been identified. Any problems that have been identified. Take a look. Which of these insights would you turn orange? What seems to be a problem that SpongeBob has? Moving on to goals might help us identify even more problems. It seems that he has one major goal here. After identifying his goals, it seems that more of these things seem to be a problem than I originally thought. Interesting how that works. You'll want to go through all of your insights thoroughly, yours and the rest of your teammates. After you're done color coding, then you can move them into little clusters, if you will. Remember, clustering insights is a very important step on your way to creating a powerful POV statement that will help you in the ideation process, which is the next level after this. So hang tight, grit through it, work hard, and really try to identify the needs of your client. You with me? Let's build.
All right. Now that we've got a feel for what it might look like to cluster, and hopefully you're able to take some tips from what Mo the Builder showed you and make it work for you and your team, we're going to look at crafting a POV statement, part 1. Part 1, client name and descriptor. This is an important piece. It's an integral piece to the whole POV statement. This is where you're going to introduce your client, right? And we need this background information before we can ever really start to empathize and understand what their needs and goals are. So in the first part, in this client name and descriptor phase, you want to be as detailed as possible with the client description, okay? You want to use demographic information, as we talked about earlier, as well as details about their personality, all right? So if someone's highly emotional and they said that, or someone said that about them, or you can assess that from how they're talking. If someone's passionate, right? If someone seems very shy or very outgoing, all of those things might be part of their descriptor, all right? We're going to need all of those things, including what their needs are and what their goals are, in order for us to craft a really great POV statement. Now, remember, the POV statement is the step before we brainstorm and ideate and come up with all kinds of ideas, but we can't even begin to do so until we have this POV statement written in this format. And it's for a reason. It's to keep us from trying to come up with solutions before we've really identified the problem. So, tips for crafting the client descriptors. All right, be as detailed as possible with the client description. Use demographic information as well as details about their personality. All right, I want you to give it a shot. But before you do so, I'm going to show you an example from our exercise with our test client, Mr. SpongeBob SquarePants. All right, so this is an example that I got from what was clustered in the video that Mo the Builder did. All right, so SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to do something in a way that lets them do something else. I know it sounds strange. Maybe it's not how we usually talk, but that might be helpful because usually as humans, we have a tendency to try to solve problems before we even state what the problem is. We get so excited about the ideation phase that we're not quite even sure what the problem is. And, you know, that can be rough, right? Think about times you've maybe talked to an elder person, an adult around, somebody older than you, and you're trying to get through and vent about your problem. And they, halfway through your venting, you haven't even figured out what your problem is, and they're already at solutions. And you're turning down their solutions because their solutions aren't really for your problem, but they haven't even allowed you the opportunity to state what your problem is. The POV statement stops us from trying to create solutions when we haven't even figured out the problem, right? So far in our POV statement, we have our client descriptor. And this is very important because now I feel like I kind of know SpongeBob, right? He's from this place called Bikini Bottom. He's childlike, but also very loyal. And he's a hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab. I can already start to make inferences about how he might work at the Krusty Krab. You know, how his loyalty and also how his childlike behavior might show up. Okay, I'm going to give you a quick preview into what we're really going to do in the next session, just so that you can understand what this is leading into. But keep in mind that the biggest thing that I want from you all is a good, solid client descriptor. And I mean, if I were you, I would go deeper than this even. Get as deep as you can. But remember, you've only got like a couple sentences to do so. Next, using the same client descriptor, we might go into some of those orange things we identified as problems, right? So SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to achieve his lifelong goal of obtaining a boat driving license, all right? Something that he's always wanted to do, but seems to not be able to grasp. And he needs to do this in a way that is both emotionally and physically safe for everyone, because that's also been a problem in the past. If you go back and look at some of the things we wrote about SpongeBob, he hasn't had great luck with this. He's actually destroyed the school and the town several times trying to get his boat driving license, right? And it's kind of wearing at his self-esteem. So he needs to do this in a way that is both emotionally and physically safe for everyone, right? Put those three together. This is a draft of SpongeBob's POV would look like right now. SpongeBob SquarePants of Bikini Bottom is a childlike, loyal, hardworking employee at the Krusty Krab who needs a way to achieve his lifelong goal of obtaining a boat driving license in a way that is both emotionally and physically safe for everyone. Now, this is probably just only one of SpongeBob's needs and problems. This is the need that I identified after doing the work. And if another team was to go in and do the work, gather insights and then cluster them and put them into groups and create a POV, they might even come up with something else. And the more the merrier, folks. All right, helping SpongeBob identify his problem and his needs is going to give him that much closer to his goals. You don't have to worry about all of that, though. Today, your to-dos are simple. You're going to go to builduniversity.org. You're going to open up your student design book, and you're going to cluster the insights that you've written in there. Okay, now you could transfer those over to a Jamboard in order to work with a group, or you all could work together in one student design book to cluster. There are all kinds of ways this can be done. And if you're working in person, which is a beautiful thing, go ahead and get those notes out and up on a board and start to move them around and cluster them around together. Right? Then you're going to complete page 4 of the design book, Meet Our Client. That's important because now you should have a really great descriptor and understanding of who your client is. And then you're going to complete part 1 of the POV statement, which is the client descriptor. All I'm asking of you folks, okay? Now, if you'd like, you can try a first draft of your full POV statement like I did, just to get the juices flowing, but please don't hold yourself to that. The biggest thing is I want you to come up with a really good client descriptor, so you have that piece for what we're going to do in the next session, all right? Also, most importantly, have fun. Don't be too hard on yourself. This is not about perfection. This is about design. Design is a process, meaning that at any point we can go back in the process, redo a piece, and make it stronger. That's what I love about design. Nobody's asking for perfection, folks. We're just asking you to just embrace the process. All right. And just a quick note of what page 4 of the design book could look like. Here's ours for SpongeBob, okay? It's a picture of SpongeBob. It says, meet our client. It says our client's name, and our client is childlike, accident-prone, hardworking, and wants a boating license. Single male identifying sponge, lives in a pineapple under the sea in Bikini Bottom, and works at Krusty Krab. Interests, jellyfishing, and boating. Okay, so make sure that you have created something like this for your client, because you'll need that in our pitch deck, right? And we'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, just to make sure that we're all in the same place and moving right along. Because again, the Citywide Challenge is a challenge for a reason, folks. It's a contest. Once you pitch your idea, all at the end, you'll be eligible for some of these great and wonderful prizes we have out there. All right, folks. All right, folks, again, these are your deliverables. Cluster your insights, complete page 4 of the design book, and then complete part 1 of the POV statement, the client descriptor. And then I'll see you all at the next session where we'll have a very special guest interview, just as exciting as last week, just as insightful as last week. All right, folks, if you don't do anything else, build a little happiness and joy into your day. It's not always easy, so sometimes you have to be the joy for somebody else. Make somebody else laugh, make somebody else happy. I promise you, in return, it's going to make you happy. And then next thing you know, we're building empowered, thriving communities full of happiness and joy. That's right. Are you with me, folks? Let's build.